Hi guys, welcome back. We'll do another recap just to get people caught up that aren't, or remind people of what the last episode was like. So this is episode 6. Episode 5, I covered how just moving out and being independent for the first time without parental guidance or rules went for me. And I told my family, my brother first, about being molested by a family member, and then he came through in a major way, supportively, physically, mentally for me. And I felt like he protected my honor in a way that had never been protected before. So that really bonded our relationship, and I started that conversation. And then we got together and I told my entire family about being molested. And that's where I left off last week, or last episode, I'm sorry. So this week I'll get into just how it made me feel to have my family, my mom and my brother specifically, stand in and step up for me. And then I'm going to talk about, the after effects of telling my family and what that did to the dynamic of our family. And then I will get into just my counseling journey, moving forward, and it starting, which was honestly one of the best things that had ever happened to me in this entire journey. So moving to Bakersfield, and then dating my brother's best friend, and eventually, I don't know if I'll get to it in this one, but eventually pressing charges against my uncle for what he did to me. So let's get popping, guys. Last week was a very emotional episode. I knew it would be emotional when I was gonna do it. I think that's why it was hard for me to do. It's like I said, not hard for me to talk about these things. Like, I've been talking about them openly with all the people that are in my life and all of my friends and any family that wants to talk about it, or if it comes up. I have no qualms about sharing my story and hoping to reach other people and give them the confidence to not only tell their stories, or not even necessarily tell their stories, just to watch out for their own children, or just make sure that they're more conscious about the situations they're putting themselves and their children or grandchildren, any children in their life that they care about. So that is the entire point of my podcast, is to share, to make people more aware and get people talking about the things that, maybe older generations don't want to talk about, or that people try to protect a family member over. But really, ultimately, the victims are the ones that need the protection. The children are the ones that need the protection. And I'm sick of people acting like it's no big deal when it's the child's entire future and life on the line. So, the last episode I talked about my brother, and he's kind of like, he be acting like my daddy sometimes. But my brother and my mom, and, when I told my family, the reaction of, my grandmother was to physically go vomit, because it's her youngest son that was the, abuser here, and I was the abusee. So, that was interesting to see. And then, it just made me feel seen for the first time by my family for who I actually was, or maybe getting them to understand my behaviors, my personality. And it brought my mom and I, my brothers and I, a lot closer. But it did not have that same effect with the rest of my family. So when I told my family about Toby molesting me, it was my mom's other brother, Bob, my grandparents, my brother, Audie, his wife at the time, and then a couple of my friends were with me, and my grandparents were there. And so, life after I told, for me, I kind of backed away from my family a little bit more. And probably a lot of that had to do with the shame I was feeling and like not wanting to answer questions. I guess I was ready to share, but I wasn't ready to jump into all the details yet, especially with my family members. Like, that was just weird to me and too intimate, and I don't mean intimate in an awesome way, I mean too intimate in a personal way. And so it was really hard for me to want to be around them. And my Uncle Bob actually lived with my mom at the time, and so there would be times, when the house phone would ring at my mom's, and it would be Toby calling, and he would be calling for my Uncle Bob. And my mom made it very clear that she didn't want Toby calling the house, didn't want him coming by anymore. And Bob said, that's my brother still. And she said, that's my brother too, but he's fucking dead to me now. Like, he's done. I don't want him calling my house. I don't want him showing up at my house. Like, I don't want him around here. And so him and my Uncle Bob and my mom kind of got into it. And it was one of those situations where my Uncle Bob was not defending Toby, but was like, I'm not going to not have him in my life. And my mom got pissed off and told him, if it would have happened to one of your kids, he'd be fucking dead already. So I don't want to hear it. Like, I don't fucking want him around my house. I don't want him calling my house. Like, I'm done with that motherfucker. He's out of my life. So that caused a lot of friction between my mom and my Uncle Bob. And my Uncle Bob ended up moving out. And so my mom and my Uncle Bob really kind of stopped talking in that situation, and it sucked. And I felt a lot of guilt for that, for causing turmoil and shit between my mom and her sibling that essentially didn't do anything wrong. So that really weighed on me. And then I would meet I was very close with my grandpa. I had been my whole life, and we would meet for breakfast, typically like once a week on Sundays, meet up, have breakfast, just chop it up, drink coffee, hang out. And they had bought some property in Arizona, and they were in the process of like moving stuff from their properties in Maricopa to the place in Arizona. And we would be talking about that. And then like my grandma and my grandpa would just be bringing Toby up like all nonchalant and fucking, oh, he's helped us move and he's helped us so much with this and that. And I'm just like it just, and there were multiple times that would happen. Like multiple times, like he would be brought up when I would be around them. And it was just so nonchalant and just so, like nothing fucking happened. And it made me sick to my stomach all the time. And I just, the day I'll never, like, we were at breakfast at Pake's, and it was just me, my grandma, and my grandpa. And I mean, they were literally talking about this motherfucker like he was some kind of saint. And I'm sitting there like, just uber pissed. But I had never been like, I mean, obviously I'd been sassy to, sorry, my dogs are fucking snoring in the background, but I'd been sassy to my grandparents, or got my ass spanked, and a little backhand here and there, flick of the fucking mouth. My mom's punching me in the mouth when they're mad at me. Like, I had never been disrespectful to my grandparents, just full on to their face. Like, that shit didn't fly in my family. And so I'm just pissed, and I'm kind of eating my emotions while we're at breakfast, not saying much. And so I just leave there and I go straight to my mom's house. And I tell my mom, listen, like, I'm done fucking around with this shit. I can't act like nothing happened. I can't just be around them and them talk about him and it be cool and act like nothing went on. And like, like this didn't happen and they still have him in their lives, I'm like, I can't do this anymore. Like, I'm not playing these fucking games. Like, I've literally kept my mouth shut my entire life. I cannot fucking keep my mouth shut anymore. Like, I'm done doing this. And she was like, what? My mom said, what do you need? Like, what do you want to do? And I was like, I don't know. I said, I feel like I have to tell them that they need to either choose between, you know, having him in their life or having me in their life. And she's like, well, whatever, you know, you want to do. So at this time, my Uncle Bob had moved out of my mom's, like I said, and, you know, they weren't speaking. And so I was just, you know, really, it made me really feel kind of isolated again and very alone again. And like, okay, haven't I started enough shit in my fucking family? So now I need to ruffle some more feathers by like giving ultimatums and all this shit. But like, I sat on it, you know, for a while, and I had started counseling, and that part of it was amazing. And, you know, my mom really jumped me into the counseling game, and I'm gonna get into that in a minute, but, you know, that was hands down the best thing I ever did for myself as far as the dealing with recovering, learning about sexual abuse and how common it really is. It's not uncommon. So, you know, that brought me so much peace, and we will get into that shortly. But, you know, so I sit on this, and I'm just angry. So I'm still living on my own. I'm, you know, around 20 probably at this time by now. And I'm just fucking mad. Like, still angry, still drinking and fucking like a champ, and just doing what I want, you know. And so finally I'm like, okay, I'm ready to have this conversation, like, with my grandparents. And so I tell my mom, hey, I'm on to talk to him. And she's like, all right, I'll go with you. So we go out to my grandparents' house, and it's me, my grandparents, my mom, and my Uncle Bob. And because I kind of feel like the same conversation needs to be had with my Uncle Bob as my grandparents. Like, hey, I'm not hanging out with you guys if you're hanging out with him. So it's my Uncle Bob, my mom, me, my grandparents. And I was sitting at a chair that they had. There was a table kind of to my left. My grandpa's sitting on their love seat. He has a coffee table in front of him. My grandma's sitting on the couch. My mom's sitting on the long couch with my grandma, and my Uncle Bob's sitting in a chair in the kitchen. And we're sitting there, and so they were like, you know, and they knew that I was coming out there because I wanted to talk to them or whatever about something. And so we go out there, and we're sitting there, and, you know, I'm nervous again, kind of like the day I told that he had molested me in the first place. And, you know, we really didn't talk about it after that day. Like, not really. You know, me and my mom talked about it a little bit because she wanted me to get into counseling. But, like, every time someone would potentially want to bring it up, which my grandparents never tried to bring it up. But, like, anytime, like, my mom would want to bring it up or something, or, like, try to be like, how are you doing? I'd be like, fucking fuck off. I don't want to talk about this anymore. Like, you know. So, anyways, especially since I was in counseling, dealing with it there, too. So, we're sitting there. And, you know, I was just like, hey, like, you know, the reason I came out here is because, you know, it's really bothering me that when we're hanging out and, you know, you're talking about Toby helping you move to Arizona and him helping you get the house ready and him being so, you know, great with this and that. It's like you're trying to sell him to me or something. Like, you know, that part of my life is done. That man will never be in my life ever again. And I'm not fucking doing this. I said, right now, I'm sitting here at your house, and I don't know if this piece of shit's gonna fucking walk up on the front porch. I said, the unpredictability of him being in your life isn't working for me anymore. I said, I don't want to hear about him. I don't care how he's doing. I don't fucking care if he's alive or dead. I don't care. I don't need anything that guy fucking has to offer. Good or bad or fucking indifferent. I'm done. And so, like, my Uncle Bob and my mom are pretty quiet at this point. And, my grandparents are kind of listening to me and whatever. And so, I said, I have put up with all these things my entire life. I've always been shut up. I've always been fucking, they put baby in a corner, and I was the baby, and I was the only fucking girl, and I was the youngest, and, all these things. And so it was always just like, you're to be fucking seen, not heard. You're all of these things, just muted constantly by my family, by my siblings, by my uncles and their wives, and fucking my older cousins. And, it was like, oh, you're too much. I was always too fucking much for everybody. And so, this was the first time having this conversation where I felt a little empowered, and I felt like I was done finally putting up with people's shit, and I was finally putting my foot down. And so, I'm just like, I'm done having to feel uncomfortable because of him. He's taken enough from me. And my grandma, so I said, you guys need to decide whether or not you want me in your life, or you need to decide whether or not you want him in your life. And my grandma's response was, he's my son. You can't ask me not to have him in my life. And so I fucking slammed my fist into the table that was sitting to the left of me, and I just screamed at the top of my lungs, he didn't ask me if I wanted to suck his fucking dick when I was a child, but I fucking did that, didn't I? I said, so don't you fucking sit there and tell me I can't ask you to not have your son in your life. And she said, he's my son. And I said, and I'm your fucking granddaughter, and I haven't done anything fucking wrong in this situation. So if that's your choice. And my mom said, Shana, you need to calm down. And I stood up and I said, I've calmed down for the last 20 fucking years, and I'm not going to be calm any fucking more. I said, so it's my turn to talk, so shut the fuck up. And she sat right the fuck back down, and I stood up and I said, so it sounds like you've made your fucking choice. Mom, it's time to go. And my mom stood up and we walked out of my grandparents' house. And that was the last time I talked to my grandparents until my mom died, which was 3 years later. And I have zero fucking regrets, and we'll get more into that later, but zero fucking regrets on how that went down. As you can see, I'm not sad. I'm not crying on this fucking part of the episode. So, that was that. Life was over with the grandparents. Like, it just literally went, and with my uncle. And, when we told the family, when we all had our first family gathering, and we told the family, like, I basically backed away and was like, I don't have kids. I'm no more responsibility in this. I'm out. You guys know. So they contacted my cousins that all had kids, asked them. They all said no, it hadn't happened to them. No, it hadn't happened to their kids. We knew that their kids pretty much hadn't been around Toby a lot, so that wasn't really an issue. So, it literally went to being, my brother was living up in Sacramento, Justin still in prison, not around, and we stopped talking to my uncle, we stopped talking to my grandparents completely, and it's just me and my mom, fucking, that's it. So we start spending more time, with my brother, and, I stay living in Taft for another year-ish. I was 20 when I moved out of Taft. I moved out, 9/11 happened that year. So me and Jen actually had a place together, and we moved from our house in Taft to our house in Bakersfield. We got an apartment in Bakersfield, and I was still working at Pete's Factory, driving back and forth. And then I got a job in Bakersfield as well. So I was working over there. Jen had a couple jobs. Jen had 29 jobs. Jen was hustling. But Jen was working literally 4 different jobs at that time. So she was working 1 in Taft, 1 in Bakersfield, or 2 in Bakersfield. Anyways, all over the place. So we decided we moved to Bakersfield. So we moved to Bakersfield on 9/11. The 9/11, when the towers fucking got bombed. We moved there to Bakersfield that day. And moved into our apartment. And at this time, I was single, just kind of messing around with people, doing whatever. And my mom was getting ready to go. My 21st birthday just so happened to fall on a Friday, which was rad. And we decide to go out, like me and a bunch of my girlfriends decide to go out. And my brother lives in Sacramento. Him and his first wife are going through shit, not getting along well. They're most likely going to be splitting up, so that's kind of shitty and going on with Audie. And then my mom is going to a Madonna concert on the night of my 21st birthday. So her and her friends go down to LA, go to a Madonna concert. So she's not around for my 21st birthday. So she tells my brother, hey, come down and go out with your sister and her friends and, like, make sure they're good and, you know, don't do anything dumb and fucking watch out for them, whatever. So Audie comes down, stays with me and Jen at our new apartment. And him and his best friend Donnie decide they're going to go out with us on the night of my birthday. Well, yeah. So we go out, right? Well, we're going to back it on up here a little bit. Go back to baby Shana times. So back when we first moved here in 1990, and I'm in the 5th grade. My brother's a freshman or sophomore. I think he's a freshman, sophomore. Anyways, something like that. Him and Donnie become best friends at some point. Like, they have their little guy clique where they're hanging out with their people, whatever. Well, like, I had known Donnie since, you know, I'm like 11, 12, something like that. So they had become best friends, and, like, he was just another part of our family. Like, he was always there. You know, he lived with his grandparents. He grew up having a gnarly little life himself with his family and his upbringing. And so, you know, him and Audie are just thick as thieves. He's close with my cousins, so he just becomes a part of our family. He's always around. Well, you know, little young Shauna, she'd be having a crush on Donnie all the time when she was a little girl, like, because he was so nice. And so he's always, like, just super, like, sweet. And whereas my brothers, my cousins, they're all dicks. They're all dumping on me all the time, fucking just being asshole boys, you know. And so Donnie comes around and he's always really sweet and really nice. He's never mean. And so, like, I had a crush on this dude since I was a young girl. Like, I was just like, oh, Donnie's so nice. Oh, Donnie, you know, just fucking lame. Well, so this 21st birthday thing, we'll fast forward again to the 21st birthday. So Audie's like, hey, Don's gonna come over and go out with us. This was never the plan, right? So it was just like, I was just like, okay, whatever, you know. And Donnie at the time was dating someone, and whatever, like, it was whatever. So I tell all my friends, I tell all my friends when I know that Donnie's coming, I said, oh, fuck it, guys, I'm gonna tell Donnie I have a crush on him tonight, because I know I'll be drinking a lot. So I'm gonna get all fucked up, and I'm gonna tell Donnie tonight. Tonight's the night. And all my friends are like, you lying bitch, you've been saying that shit for years. I'm like, you watch, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna tell him. I'm gonna tell Donnie. So I did it, guys. I fucking did it. We go out, like, I don't even know all the shenanigans, but we all go out, whatever. We're hammered. We're at, oh my God, we were at the old Goose Loonies, not the current Goose Loonies. The old Goose Loonies that used to have the barber chair on the bar. And so we're there. I had already had shots, like, poured down my throat. Like, I mean, I was hammered. So I'm like, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it. So Donnie and Audie wouldn't let me buy drinks all night because it's my birthday, whatever. And they're those kind of guys. So, like, I'm up at the bar trying to get a drink. Well, here comes fucking Don, fucking Captain Save-A-Ho with the drink money. And he comes up, he's like, you ain't buying drinks, I'm getting these drinks, you know, whatever, blah, blah, blah. So we're standing there, and I'm all, my balls are still done dropped. Pow, pow. And I was like, fuck it, I'm gonna do it. There's nobody around us. My brother's not here. My brother won't hear. I ain't scared. I'm gonna tell him. So we're standing there, and I was like, hey. And he's like, what? And I was like, I need to tell you something. And he's like, what's up? And I was like, dude, I'm like, I'm so nervous. This is dumb. I'm all, but dude. I'm like, I've always had a crush on you since I was a little girl. And he's all, what? And I'm like, dude, for real, I have had a crush on you since I was like fucking 12 years old or whatever the fuck age I was, you know. And he's like, are you serious? And I was like, yeah. And then Donnie, you guys. Donnie does the worst possible fucking thing you could ever do and say to a girl that has just spilled her fucking crushed guts on your shoes at the bar. He goes, wow, I've always thought of you as a little sister. I was like, fuck me, dude. Woo! I'm like, that's fucking awesome, cool. And I just grabbed my drink off the bar and just like walked away. And he's like, no, like, wait. And I was like, no, yeah, that's fucking embarrassing. I'm out of here. Fuck this. And so, like, I walk off, right? And so, anyways, the night goes on. Whatever. Fucking, I don't talk about it. I go tell all my friends, and they're like, what happened? And I'm like, bro, he done said, he little fucking sistered me. He done little sister friend zone my ass. Like, straight pushed me over into the fucking little sister corner. So, anyways, what happens is my brother and Donnie get so trashed that me and my friends end up taking care of them on my 21st birthday. So, Cheryl, Bethel, fucking kudos to you, my DD, that night. She wasn't old enough to go into the bars, so she drove all of our asses around in 2001 so we could go around to the bars. So, we're driving back to our apartment in Donnie's Camaro. It's a 2-door Camaro. Cheryl's driving. Audie's in the passenger seat. Donnie's behind Cheryl. I'm in the middle. Cheryl's homie from college, Liz, is in the fucking back behind Audie. Cheryl's going down the fucking 99, ripping and tearing. I don't know what time it is. It's late night. Audie has the window down. He's got his head laying in the fucking windowsill of the Camaro. And all of a sudden, we're all just like, the fuck? And Liz is like, oh, hell no. And I'm like, what the fuck is going on? And then I look over at Donnie, and Donnie's just got his hand over his mouth, and he's gagging. He's like, pull over, fucking, I'm gonna puke. I look up, Audie's thrown up. But he's kind of passed out, and his head's just laying there, and Cheryl's going like 75 down the 99. So all Audie's puke was just fucking flying around like a money machine all over us. Needless to say, Donnie's car got detailed the next day because there was vomit on the ceiling and in the back window. And so it was just bad. But we made it home safely. And then, you know, like, Donnie and I talked, and he was just like, holy shit, like, wow, where did that come from? Where did all that come from? And I said, I was just telling you, motherfucker, had balls of steel. I was just saying what happened. And what happened was I was drunk and had balls of steel. And I told you that I thought you were cute and I liked you. So anyways, he goes back living his life. After that weekend, I go back living my life. And then things kind of went south in his relationship that he was in. And, you know, not long after, I don't even think it was a month after. And so it was very soon after my birthday. And so Audie goes back up to Sacramento. He's dealing with his life. I'm at home dealing with my life. Audie has no idea. I told Donnie that I liked him. Audie had no idea I liked him. So it was news to fucking just Donnie. And so, anyways, Donnie calls me. We go to like dinner one night. He comes back to my apartment. He's in school. We're talking. And he's telling me that things aren't going well in his relationship. And I'm just like, I'm not trying to get caught up in no messes. Like, you figure your life out. So we were kind of just like in limbo a little bit. And he was just like, you know, since you told me that you liked me, I haven't been able to stop thinking about you. So, you know, we're having these conversations of like, could we really date? What does that look like? How does that work? What the fuck is my brother gonna do? What's my mom gonna do? Where are we at with this? So his relationship during this time comes to an end. And then him and I decide we're gonna start dating. And we're just like, yay, we're dating. Well, guess what? We kept it a secret for a minute from my brother and from, so sorry, Audie. I mean, you know now. But yeah, we kept it a secret for a minute. And we just dated just to see if it was going to work and if we really did like each other. So we're dating for a few months. And his ex calls and says those magic words, I'm pregnant. And he said, not by me, girl. We ain't been together in a minute. And she said, ding-a-ling, I was fucking, you know how guys are dumb. You know how Johnny, my dad, was dumb? Donnie. Turns out Donnie and Johnny are dummies. And so, sure shit, little baby Donnie's on his way. And that kind of scared the fuck out of me because I wasn't even trying to be having no babies or be having no boyfriends. I'd be having no babies. So we split up for a minute and decided that nope, that wasn't going to work, that we did want to be together. So we got back together and he had his son, DJ. And so that was fun and cool and things, you know, went well. And I'm going to school. He's going to school. He's working. I lived in Bakersfield. He stayed living in Taft. Then he moved back. Or he moved to Bakersfield, and, you know, I end up fucking having a lot of anger issues still. So, yeah. I got in a scrap with this chick that lived in the same apartments. She took some stuff out of my apartment, and I kicked her fucking door in broad daylight and wanted my shit back. So guess what? The cops got called. And then guess what? I had to beg before the cops showed up. Because there were people that witnessed this shit. I did it right in the motherfucking midst of Jesus and all of his disciples. Kicked that door right the fuck off its hinges. The whole door frame was out. And so Jen was at work. I'm shitting my pants, begging this chick not to fucking press charges against me before the cops get there. So cops get there. She doesn't press charges. I agree to pay for all the damage, all the whatevers, blah, 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 blah. And come home. I had to go to work. I don't know if I worked that day or if I worked the next morning, but I just remember coming home from work the next day. And there was a 3-day eviction notice on me and Jen's fucking apartment. We had 3 days to get the fuck on out because of what I did. So I done called Jen. She was at work. And I said, Jen, we've got a problem. Jen's like, what's up? And I said, you probably should come home. This is probably a conversation we should have in person. So Jen comes home. And I just show her the eviction notice. And she's all, Shana, what the actual fuck? And I was like, yeah, you remember that little mishap I had yesterday? This is it. So, Jen's like, what the fuck? So obviously we had like, at this time, 48 hours to get the fuck out. So Jen's like, what are we going to do? Like, I don't know what we're going to do. Well, her grandmother on her mom's side was having some health issues and stuff. And so Jen's like, I think I'm going to move up to Santa Rosa. Like, I think I'm just going to go up to Santa Rosa. And I was like, where the fuck am I going to go, Jennifer? Can't leave me. And I wasn't ready to live with Donnie and a baby yet because I was scared. And it wasn't my baby. And me and the baby mom weren't necessarily, you know, best friends, as you could imagine. And so I was just like, motherfuck. So I said, Mama, I need to come back home, Mama. So I'm 21, and I tell my mom, you still got that spare room open? Well, since my Uncle Bob had moved out, my mom had a spare room open. So I moved back to Taft. and I move in with my mom, and I pay rent, and I don't have rules, and it works out. Because when we lived together before, we did not get along. We didn't see eye to eye. Things were not cool. And yeah, so I moved back to Taft. Donnie and I are dating still. And he ends up getting a house, buying a house in Taft, and moving in there. And so, you know, I stay with him all the time, whatever, we're dating. And I mean, for the most part, like, our relationship was really good. He was, you know, the transition was easy. I made him tell Audie I wasn't about that life. I said, guess what? He's always going to be my motherfucking brother. He might not be your best friend. No, so you're up to bat, bud. So he told him. Audie was great. Like, Audie had a really great response, and it was just like, you know, when your sister, you know, dates someone and is in a relationship, you only hope that they're treated well, and like, you know, there's nobody better I could pick for my sister than you. All those cheesy gay things that boys say to each other. So it was cool. Like, all that was good. And so life's just kind of life, and I'm still in school. Donnie's, you know, finishing up school, I think, around this time, and we're dating. Things are getting more serious between him and I, and like, there was just obviously issues. Like, he had family issues with his parents, and I had my fucking issues for my whole life. This was my first, like, I'd had a bunch of boyfriends in the past, but like, not the kind of boyfriends you bring home to mom. Like, boyfriends where you're mostly dating and screwing and going out to eat, and that's it, not introducing them to your family, you know? So I had plenty of situations like that, but this is the first, like, dude I introduced to my dad. Like, and my dad already knew him and loved him, but like, you know, like, it was getting serious time. Like, it was getting like, where's this relationship going? And like, so he was having issues with his parents, and he has 2 younger sisters that he eventually ended up raising. And so he got custody of his sisters when him and I were dating, which was like another just, wow, monkey wrench, you know, like going from us being single, no kids, happy, doing whatever we wanted, to, okay, now we've got a baby. Well, he's got a baby, not we got a baby, because it wasn't my baby, but I still loved him, and, you know, still love him to this day. He's a great kid. But, you know, he has a baby, and then he has 2 teenage girls that he's raising on his own, with me as his girlfriend helping, and I'm 22 years old. So 23 years old, you know, and I'm just like, ooh, fucking wow. Okay, all right. So this is where things get fucking weird again, guys, because this always happens in my life, and things are always fucked up and weird, right? So everything's all peachy. Everything's good. Me and Donnie are good. The girls are good. His sisters, they live with us in the house. And it's a school night, and his youngest sister had a friend over. And so it's getting late. It's dark. It's wintertime. And she asked if her friend can stay the night. And I said, no, it's a school night. Like, she can hang out, but she's not staying the night, and we'll take her home, you know, whatever. So comes time to take her home. And me and Donnie and his sister and this other little girl get in the car, and they're 12 at the time. And 12 or 13, I think 12 though. And we get in the car, we're driving, and we're driving down E Street, or D Street. I don't know, one of the fucking streets. We're driving down, and Donnie asked her address, and she says her address, and my fucking heart drops out of my body, through my asshole, and onto the ground. And I literally made a sound and said, oh my God. And Donnie said, what? And I just shook my head, no. And he said, what? What is wrong? Like, what is going on? And I said, I'll tell you later. We drop her off, and he said, what the fuck was that? And I said, that's where Toby lives. That's Toby's address. And I had no idea who this little girl was, but it was Toby's friend's daughter. So this 12-year-old girl is living with the man that molested me for over 3 years of my life. And I immediately turn around. I look at his sister, because I knew that we hadn't let her go there and be around. But I was like, have you ever seen this person? And I just grill, and I'm like, blah, blah, blah. And she's like, no, what's going on? And so me and Donnie get back to the house, and I'm like, dude. And so this is the first time, because when I told my family that he had molested me, and then we tell my brothers, we tell my cousins, we make sure it didn't happen to any of my boy cousins or any of their children. So we think, okay, I was an isolated incident. He hadn't molested me. My little girl cousin, my cousin Kevin, she was the only other girl in our family at that time, and she was a little fucking girl and hadn't really been around Toby a lot. So, like, we knew I was the only one that it had happened to, so we were kind of like, fuck. And so this, I was just like, you're not allowed to go there. She is always allowed to come to our house. I said, but you are never allowed to go to her house, ever. Not even fucking on the way home from school, stopping by to drop off her book bag. Like, you are not allowed to go there. So she knew, and like was like, okay, like, we were serious, and I felt better about that. And she said, no, I'd never, been around him, and I said, has your friend ever said anything? And she's just kind of like, no. So I'm like, this is the first time in my mind a girl that I know of has been around him, another young girl. And I'm just like, holy fucking shit. Like, is he doing this to the little girl that lives in the home with him? Because he hadn't ever had kids and ever lived with people that had kids living in the home with them. So I was just like, no way. Like, the way it immediately just, it was like I was removed from my life, and I was fucking watching it from the outside, looking in and just depicting all these little things I was doing wrong, and how I have made the worst mistake in my life by staying silent. What if he's doing this to this little girl? And I immediately take on the guilt and the, oh my God, what if because you didn't tell, he's been doing this? Are you responsible for fucking him doing this, Which obviously I'm not. I'm not responsible for his actions. But by staying silent, we let abusers continue to fucking abuse, because sexual abuse crimes are the most repeated fucking crimes that there are. I will come back with some statistics on that. Not right now, but I will. It's going to be part of the podcast. So I just cannot shake this feeling. I am sick to my fucking stomach. I am sick. I'm beside myself. And I'm not sleeping. I am fucking guilt-ridden. So I go to my mom again. And I tell her what's going on. And she's like, oh my God, like, what do we do? What do you want to do? And I was like, I don't know. I guess I'm just going to call the cops. So what did I do, guys? I did what I said I was going to do. I called the fucking cops. So I call the cops, you guys. And I tell the cops what's happening. And the cops are like, what in the actual fuck? And I said, this isn't the first time I've heard that phrase in my life. And they said, we're going to need to call you back. So they do. I wait, and it takes like maybe a few days. It was not long at all. It was just like maybe 2 or 3 days. And a deputy calls me back and says, hey, like, I was told about this and this and this and this, and here's what we're going to do. And I said, okay. So they tell me, since it happened in Maricopa, because I told them, like, I literally backed it up, and I just went back and I said, this happened to me by this person. This is the situation I'm in now. I'm nervous that he might be doing it to this little girl that's living in the same home as him. So they say, okay. So, and they were familiar. When I said his name, they said, oh yeah, we know him. We're very familiar with him, because like I said, he had always been in trouble for drugs, for stealing, for breaking and entering, for just driving without a license, for just being a fucking nuisance piece of shit. They had no idea he was also a fucking child predator. So they're like, now, so at this time when I called and told, Maricopa actually had a deputy station out there, and it was in like the old, it was like, I want to say like a little community building that they had. It was like these trailers sitting in a fucking parking lot, literally. So he goes, I'm gonna need you to go out there. We have a deputy out there, and that deputy is gonna take a deposition from you and like basically go over what we need from you. And so I was like, okay. So I fucking tell my mom, hey, this is what's gonna happen. She's like, all right. And so, and I had to go by myself. So I go out there. We like set up the date and the time, whatever. I go out to Maricopa and I give over a 2-hour confession. And he had, you know, a list of things, and he was so like, I don't, you know, it's weird. I have so many memories and so many like distinct memories and things that I remember with such great detail. And then I have memories, like I said, where I'm like, what? So this day for me, you know, it was weird. I didn't cry. Like I said, like I had processed, and because he was a stranger, it wasn't like telling my family. I didn't have that shame really, and he was amazing, and I don't remember the officer's name, but I do, like, I literally, they asked me specific stories. They asked, you know, dates weren't an issue. They knew it was during summer months. They knew the years, so, you know, it was a little bit more able to say, like, okay, this happened potentially in June or July. Yes, okay. Of, you know, 87, 88, 89, and then after I moved there in 90. So, I am giving, and, you know, he's asking, do you remember, I'm having to give details about what I was wearing, you know, as a child. And so, do all this. And he asked me about specific incidences. I tell him my side. I tell him everything that happens. And he was just like, you know, at the very beginning, he was just like, I'm so sorry that this happened to you, and I'm going to have to ask you a lot of really uncomfortable questions, and know that it's protocol. It's not, you know, just because I want to get into detail, but he's like, the more detail, the better. He's like, because, you know, you don't want things like this basically getting dismissed because of lack of detail or anything. And he's like, and we don't want to have to do it over and over and over again. We want to get it really detailed and good the first time, so that moving forward with whatever happens, you aren't having to travel back down this part of it. So completely respectful, super amazing. And, you know, him being a grown man and asking me questions, being a very young woman at that time, he made me feel very uncomfortable, and I was very grateful for that. So kudos to Kern County Sheriff's Department for their part in that. So I go into this, and they just tell me, okay, we'll be in touch. And I'm like, I just told you the deepest, dirtiest, darkest, and I have to fucking wait. But yeah, you do. The good old fucking justice system, or lack thereof. So time goes by, and I don't know how much time passed. I just know that the next thing I know, I'm being contacted by the district attorney's office, and I'm being introduced to my lawyer that took care of me, and she's telling me what's gonna happen. And I'm like, okay. And then they're like, we're gonna make an arrest, blah 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 blah. So they're going to arrest him, and I'm like, okay. So then I get a call, you know, not long after. Like, this was kind of like, at this point now, once the cops let the court system know, and then the court system decided, yes, we're going to press charges, and things started rolling in that manner, it moved a lot quicker. So we start court. They go, or let me back up. They go and arrest him. And it's actually the sheriff's department. They go to his house. He's there. They act like they're there for a different reason. They're talking to him about just stupid shit. And then all of a sudden they just slowly start throwing me into the mix, and throwing things that I said in the mix to him. And he didn't deny it, even kind of didn't try to get out of it. Didn't say, no, I didn't say, You got the wrong guy. She's lying. Nothing. Just admitted it. Fucking got arrested. Was put in jail. And so that started the court process of him being arrested, charges being pressed against him. So they took my confession and they charged him with 6 counts of lewd and lascivious acts against a minor under the age of 14, under the age of 12, actually, I think it was, because I was under the age of 12 when it happened. And so he was charged with 6 counts, and we start going to court. He pleads guilty. He plea bargains. He gets sentenced to 12 years. It takes probably from the time he's arrested to the time that he's getting sentenced, I'm going to say it's probably about a calendar year's worth of time. And he's incarcerated this whole time, stays in prison. And, you know, I am just like, wow. Why did I wait to do this? Why the fuck? The peace of mind it gave me, and it turns out, great news, he didn't do anything to the little girl, because the police went there and they investigated and they asked the little girl, they asked the dad. And so, you know, he hadn't done anything to this little girl. He hadn't done anything to Donnie's little sister. He, you know, just whatever. So it's like, wow, this went kind of seamlessly. Let's thank God. Like, finally something's happening that feels like it's positive, you know, out of all this shit. So he goes to jail, gets the time served, you know, so he has to, it's going to be like where he's serving like maybe 10.5 years over what he did to me. So, you know, Donnie and I are still dating. My grandparents, every time we go to court, my grandparents are coming and sitting on his side. So we're sitting over here. My grandparents are sitting on his side. There's a jury box over to my right-hand side here, and he's fucking there every time. And this piece of shit's fucking sitting there staring at me. I'm in the fucking crowd. My mom's in the crowd. And finally, like, the judge and the lawyer got pissed, my lawyer, and they made a deputy stand in between him and me so that he couldn't look at me. And not that he didn't scare me. Like, I wish I would run into that motherfucker on the streets right now, because I'd knock probably the one fucking tooth he had in his face out. Same, you know, like, but I don't know. Anyways, he didn't scare me. It wasn't intimidating. It's just fucking uncomfortable. Like, and not because I felt like I was doing anything wrong by putting him in prison for what he fucking did to me as a child. It's just fucking uncomfortable to have someone sit there and fucking stare a hole through your fucking face that sexually fucking abused you for years of your life and took your innocence away from you. So anyways, you know, and we would run into my grandparents at the court, tiny ass baby little fucking courthouse in Taft. And it's not like you're not seeing each other. You're not parking in the same little tiny ass parking lot, you know, and we don't say a word to each other as this whole thing's going on. So he gets sentenced, gets thrown in fucking jail, whatever. This kind of puts me in a weird, funky place too. Like, I don't in a healthy way know how to handle my emotions. All I would do when I couldn't handle my emotions back then is drink. I would drink, and then I would take my anger out on whoever was around or whatever was going on in my life. And so, you know, Donnie's insanely supportive during this entire time. My friends are insanely supportive. My brother, my mom, you know, everything's potentially going decently well. And then out of nowhere, I get a call from the DA's office telling me that because all the Catholic priests, so you go back to 2001, 2002, you know, 2000, 2003, we'll just say that, 2000 to 2003, you go back and you look in the news about what was happening in the fucking news. And I'm not a big conspiracy person. I have some things I do believe in, and then I have a lot of things I don't. But get a call from the DA's office, and because of all the Catholic priests that were molesting kids and getting caught in the church, they made a rule, the Supreme Court, and all the law was made that the statute of limitations would go into effect. So that all these nasty fucking Catholic priests that were molesting kids didn't have to serve any jail time and did not have to register as sex offenders. So they put this statute of limitations in place, and anything that happened before 1990 didn't count anymore. So my sexual abuser was getting ready to be released from prison, didn't have to register as a sex offender, was not on Megan's law, so no rules. He can live within a school, he could live with children, he could do anything he fucking wants. It's like this never even fucking happened. So he gets released, does not have to register, and meanwhile I spent over a year of my life putting this motherfucker in prison for what? For what? Nothing. For fucking nothing. Because he just gets out. And he just gets to go back to fucking life doing whatever he wanted, however he wanted, wherever he wanted, whenever he wanted. And still don't talk to my grandparents. Still don't have anything to do with my Uncle Bob. And Toby gets out of prison and just goes back to fucking life. Back in Taft. And I get pissed. And you know, me and my mom didn't, like, my mom had my back on not talking to my grandparents, and, like, she didn't talk to my grandparents either, but straight up, like, when he got out of prison, and I found out, and we went to the bar, I got fucked up. We all did. Me, Chad Rogers, Donnie, my mom, and a couple of my girlfriends were with me, but I don't remember who. But we all went and got fucked up. We go back to my mom's, continue to drink. I start talking shit about my grandparents. And I'm like, fuck those people, because they came to court when we had to go to court, and like they told us that he was getting released and all this shit. So that's when we left and fucking go get fucked up. So I start talking shit about my grandparents, and especially about my grandma, in front of my mom. And my mom, we're at her house, and she's just like, you know, that's enough. They're still my parents. And I said, I don't give a fuck who they are. Like, I don't give a fuck. They're pieces of shit. Like, they go and they support that motherfucker. They sit by him. They can't fucking sit on my side. They can't tell me anything. He admitted to everything, and they're fucking supporting him and not me. Like, are you fucking kidding me? So all that, we would do anything for you, anything you ever need. We'd fucking kill anybody that ever did anything for you. Like, none of that shit applied. None of that shit, like, we've always got you no matter what applied. Like, I was sick of it. I was fucking done. I was done with those people. And so she basically popped up, and my mom did, and so I fucking pop up, and we're face to face. And this time I'm sure I'm gonna punch my mom in her fucking face for the first time of my life. I'm pretty fucking sure I am going to beat her ass. And I mean, we are fucking toe to toe, and she pushed me, and I pushed her back, and then Chad and Donnie grabbed us. Boom! And Chad took me outside, and Donnie took my mom outside, and they separated us, and then I ended up fucking leaving. I think I probably ended up going up to Donnie's or something, but I could not. Like, I didn't care. I didn't care what my mom said or thought. I had my feelings. I still have my feelings about it. I still feel the same way. Like, my grandma is one of the fucking biggest cunts I've ever met. And on that note, when all you people say, oh, you're disrespectful, you're trashy, you're this, you're that. Well, on the next episode, you're going to find out exactly what kind of fucking human being my grandmother is, because just when things couldn't get weirder, Shauna's life gets fucking weirder. So, I'm going to leave on that note. Again, thank you guys for coming along. I'm glad I didn't cry this time. That felt good. And we're going to jump into the rest of what happened to Toby because of what he did to me. We are going to jump into Donnie and I's relationship. And then we're going to start getting into me losing my mom. So that one's going to suck and I'm going to cry a lot. But you guys have been supportive and I'm here for it. So stick around, find out the demise of many more relationships to come in my life, especially with my family, and me starting to choose my own family moving forward. Thank you guys so freaking much about listening, commenting, coming along, sharing. I get so many texts and I appreciate the text, and I wish if you guys are comfortable, you would write on the videos or write on the podcast or even give the podcast a review. And like I said, same name, No One's Off Limits on YouTube, on Instagram, on YouTube, on not Snapchat. I'm not there yet. I'm not hip. Podcast, Spotify, those things. So go listen, please share. I would love it if you share. And thank you so much for listening, guys. It seriously means the world. The feedback keeps me going because this has been a very emotional but a very rewarding journey, and that's because of you guys, not because of me. Like I said, I've told this story, and getting the good vibes back from you guys is truly what I'm doing this for, and to make people more aware. So thank you so much for that, and I will see you guys on the next episode. Take care.